Well, good morning. I'm not sure what time it is. It's probably about 10:30, maybe 11. Thursday morning. I'm out here on my front porch again. And, well, about yesterday afternoon, me and Booger went to one of the spots we used to go to a long time ago, dig bloodroot. And we made a video, and I deleted it. And the reason why I deleted it isn't because the content wasn't good. I kind of corrupted the content, and I said some stuff on camera, and I didn't want the backlash from it, so I deleted it. Now, Sunday after market, I'm going to come home, unload the vehicle, we're going to grab a few things, and whether or not he goes with me or not, I couldn't tell you, but I am going to go to a certain area, the same place that me and Puckett go and picking mushrooms in the first part of the year, and I'm going to go to that same area, and I'm going to look for some sassafras tree, which I know is there. I'm going to mark them, and then I'm going to attempt to locate some yellow root, which I know where it's at, and dig that up. Not to sell, but I'm going to dig it up, and I'm going to bring it home and transplant it into my container pots I have that are full of pot soil and compost and everything else, and try to get them to reestablish themselves and basically see if they will revive enough to make it through the winter and come up next spring. And if it does work, great, so be it. If it doesn't work, then it's a failed attempt, and I'll have to just wait and get some other stuff somewhere else. Now, yesterday was very disappointing, disheartening, because the hillside that we used to go digging bloodroot on, the soil was so dark and rich. I mean, you could literally take your fingers and stick it in the ground, and the soil was dark, as black as motor oil. And they went in there, and I guess, well, it's not I guess, they basically went in there and packed everything with hardcore red clay, and they just ruined the hillside, and they put benches up in place of all kinds of places, and they built a little amphitheater out there, which it is kind of cool how they did this, but it sucks where they did it at, because the hillside was, it was a beautiful hillside. I mean, there was so much bloodroot there, you couldn't shake a stick at anything, because it was covered all over the place. Now you can't find nothing. And it's very disheartening. But it is what it is. Now, one of the things I will say about Greenpeace, or green space, or what we want to call them around here, is when the elders, referring to like my grandparents, age people, was running it, when they said this is marked off and there's not going to be any construction, it's not going to be no roadways, we might put a path through there, and it was great. They kept their word on what it was set aside for. Now, once they had died off, and my parents' age range people have taken over, amongst people my age that are involved in it, basically they're like, well, let's shave off a little of this area and sell it to these people with these like doctors and high-end people kind of places, or not places but people, and they've sold off tracts and areas of protected area that is now turning into a residential, and or parts of residential, or they've completely just went through and demolished and tore up everything that was beautiful beforehand. And a good example is Buffalo Lake. Now, when I say Buffalo Lake, most of y'all have no clue what the hell I'm talking about. But it was a reservoir. It was a long time ago. It was a rock quarry turned into a reservoir, and a lot of the people went out there amongst the area. They go out there fishing and stuff like that in the reservoir, because there were fish in there. I mean, there was some, not a whole lot, but there were some. A lot of bluegill, a lot of pan-sized fish, maybe a few crappie here and there, but a lot of bluegill, some rock bass, stuff like that. And but they went out there and bulldozed shit, and I mean, they just went out there and they took a natural, like a natural scenic area, and tried to transform it into like this new age modern kind of park for yuppies, and it looks like shit. Big old, look at it, hot, can't tell. But yeah, and that's kind of like what they're doing where we went out the other day trying to find some bloodroot, and it's turning into the same thing. Me and Junior walked down this path. We walked maybe, I don't know, 150 foot, give or take. And a long time ago, there was a big old, it was like kind of like farmland at one point in time. There was a bunch of barbed wire fence up to there. Now, when I was a kid running through here, about the same age what my son is now, it was, I mean, trees all over the place, partial barbed wire fence. There was a few, I mean, like turn of the century implement type machinery pieces out there, and we played on them. I mean, we knew where they're at. Now there's a $450,000 home sitting in the middle of this area that used to be old farm country, and it was part of the green piece or green space, or what do you want to call them. And now there's, like I said, there's a $400,000 to $500,000 home sitting there, and you can, it's probably like 200 to 300 feet off the trail. You're looking up through it, boom, here's a home sitting right there. And that's what they're doing. It pisses me off because, you know, they're like, oh, we're for nature, we're for this, we're for that. Well, until it's like, well, let's just sell it off to some yuppie and they can put a house on it. But, you know, it's just me venting and complaining. But, you know, there was a decent video we had, but like I said, I ran my mouth and said a few things, so I had to delete it. But this coming Sunday after market, I'm going to go this one part that I know it's untouched, it's unscathed, and it's where me and Puckett go to pick morels every spring. And, you know, I'm going to try my luck there. Now, I know there might be a little bit of bloodroot there, maybe. Highly doubtful. Might be. I do know there's yellow root. I'm going to dig some of that up. I'm going to mark some sassafras trees. And so I can go back and I can dig up some sassafras tree for the root. And I can have me some root for tea this winter. And I can use the rest of it to make sassafras jelly. And just because I want to try it, well, I want to try the process of making jelly with it. So I know I can. It's going to be a process of doing, but you know, this time of year, this is a great time to forage a lot of the things that you didn't do during the summertime, because when you went outside, not only was you attacked by a swarm of mosquitoes and ticks, you just sweat your ass off and melts in the process of trying to go out through the weeds to get things. This time of year is great because, yeah, there still might be a little mosquitoes here and there, but the ticks are kind of like, well, now I'm not saying you won't find any on you, but you're not going to have to go out and spray yourself with chemicals and, you know, cover yourself in tape and everything else just to keep ticks off of you. As bad. But yeah, this is what I liked about this time of year, other than all the leaves falling off the trees, because I sweep my porch probably 3 times a day, because I have poplar trees, and poplars are the first ones to dump leaves like crazy. And when they dump leaves, it's like the whole tree is like, it's like you're up there with the rake raking the leaves off. And then on top, if it's dry like it has been a little bit, they drop even quicker because there's not enough rain. Then in this cooler temperatures, they drop even more. But you know, it is what it is. And the worst thing of it is winter is not too far behind after fall. Now, I understand we have to have winter. I understand we have to have the freezing cold temps to process all the seeds in the ground or on the ground so they can germinate and do their course of action and, you know, come back again the next year. That's fine. I understand that concept. I just hate it because the older I get, the more stiff I get, the more my bones hurt, my joints hurt, and everything else. And a lot of people I know my age, they moved down south, Florida, Lower Alabama, Mississippi area, you know, places like that where it's nice and warm. And it stays warm. But I don't want to have to deal with hurricanes and massive tidal rain, you know, like monsoon weather, and they get a lot more tornadoes on top of hurricanes and everything else. So I'll just keep my ass up here in Kentucky and deal with the cold weather. Now, when I drove over the road, I saw a lot of places I'd love to live in. I really did. I saw a lot of places I'd love to live in, but I couldn't because I was born in Kentucky and I'm going to die in Kentucky. Now, I joke with some guys on Facebook every so often. I'm like, this one guy, he's up in North Dakota. I'm like, man, why don't you come down here where it's not so bad? And he's like, I love the cold, which I understand. There's people that love it. I can't stand it, really. I don't mind coolness, like right now. It's like 65, 70 degrees out here. You know, it's not bad. Now, when it gets to like 30s, it sucks because I got arthritis in my hands, and my hands lock up and everything else. So, and then on top of it, you know, I have other issues. When I had my accident, I have back problems with locking up in really cold weather, and then there's times my knees will give out, and yeah, it's just getting old sucks. I tell my kids all the time, enjoy moving around, climbing on things and everything else, because the older you get, the worse it gets. And then once you get to a certain age, it seems like it's not even feasible. But to hear my dad talk, he goes, you sound like you're an 80-year-old man. I said, well, if you've been busted up as much as I have, you feel like an 80-year-old man. But I'm in the process of, I got about 2.5 gallons of peppers in my cook pot. I'll be making hot sauce today. And I'm waiting on some stobbers coming in, because I bought some bottles the other day. I got them from one of the local stores, and it's like a skull decanter. Hell, it's probably about this tall. I don't know, it's about a 750 milliliter bottle size, maybe a little bigger. And I'm gonna make hot sauce and put it in those. Now, I thought it came with a stobber, and it came with a little round ball that sits on top of it, which I guess if you had it sitting on the side with something else in it, it'd be fine. But what I'm going to be using it for, you can't have a little round ball, you actually have to have a stobber in it. And of course I ordered them off Amazon. They're coming sometime this afternoon, and I figured if the stobbers I ordered, if they do not work for the bottles, which I hope they do, but if they do not work for the bottles, I'm just going to stick the hot sauce in a mason jar, a couple mason jars or a few mason jars, and just label it as redneck hot sauce. You know, moonshine and rednecks, you know, well, not really moonshine, but, you know, everybody assumes the appellation / redneck is nothing but a bunch of moonshiners, because as soon as you say Appalachian, you know, that first thing comes to mind is, you know, backwoods, barefoot hillbilly and moonshine. So I just figured, hell, I got a bunch of mason jars laying around, I'll just fill them up with hot sauce and do it that way. But, you know, if it works out, it works out. If not, then no harm, no foul. But if my stobbers come in and they actually fit the bottles, I got 2 containers. I'm going to fill those up full of that hot sauce I'm planning on making here shortly. And I'll take those to market. And I know I'll sell them bigger than shit. No questions asked. Because Halloween's right around the corner. And then on top of it, have hot sauce in a giant glass skull bottle. That'd be another thing. It's like one of those oddity things. People, oh, this is great. It's hot sauce and it's a skull, means death, and it's hot. You know, it is what it is. But that's one of the things I'm gonna be doing today, and then also we gotta move a few objects in the yard. Kind of like an eyesore that's been sitting around. We gotta move them to the side. We gotta. One of the coons came around here, tore open one of my bags of cans. We got to pick those back up, put them in the bag, and I need to get my trailer moved out from where it's sitting at, and get it loaded up with a lot of the scrap metal. And I was planning on hauling it off this week, but I think I might just wait and do it next week. And you know, when there's not so much crap going on, and haul all that off at one time, and you know, make the yard a little nicer looking for winter time. But there's still other projects we got to do around here, small projects, nothing major. It's a lot of the garden plants, a lot of my plants I have, they're beyond, you know, growing wise, so I'm gonna cut them off, or cut them off at the base and take the plants and throw them over the side piece for the goats for them to eat up on. And and this is crazy, I got tomato plants still in my yard that I have not pulled up. Everybody in my area in late August, first part of September, they all the time they jerk out the tomato plants. And if you put a fall crop in place of your tomato plants, that's great. But a lot of people, they just jerk them out of the ground and okay, they're done, you know, we're over with, there's no more tomatoes. I got a tomato down here in my little ring container down here. I have blueberry plants in, I got some potato plants in there as well. And I got a couple of tomato plants. I got a tomato that's that big around, that's as bright as Rudolph's nose. That's big old red tomato. And I meant to get it yesterday, and I forgot to, so that means this afternoon I'm gonna go down and pick it, take it in the house. I've gotten probably 4 tomatoes that big around, big old red tomatoes and orange tomatoes off my vines that are still have a bunch of green ones on there, which probably by Saturday morning won't be green no more. They will have like frost damage on it, because we're gonna get our first frost in between Friday and Saturday, and then we're getting a killing frost in Sunday morning. So I gotta go through here and pick all the vegetables that are on here, whether they're ripe or not, and basically, well, all the ones that I don't plan on covering with a sheet or a tarp, and you know, then, you know, pick them and bring them inside so they can ripen and do their thing. And Then basically the last of the tomato crop will be in the house, except for there's a few over here that I can cover with a tarp, and it might affect them a teeny bit, but nothing like it would if I just left them in open air. Because well, because I know even though we're going to have a hardy frost, we're still going to have days in the 70s, even cool nights in the 40s and the 50s, that it really won't affect the tomato, so to say. So, but anytime in the extended forecast that I see that we're going to have days in the 30s, then I guess I'll have to bite the bullet and pick them and bring them inside and let them ripen in the house and be done with it. But I'm going to show you this real quick. This here, it's a cherry tomato. Of course, you see this and then you're like, well, that's a pretty damn big cherry tomato, which it is. They call this a chocolate cherry. And get my fingers out of the way. I don't got my glasses on. I don't know how good it's showing up. But it does have like a little bit of redness to it, a little brown color and green and stripy. Now, I did pick a few of these, and they've been sitting for a little bit, and I'm going to let these get kind of squishy and dry out to some degree. And what I'm going to do with these is eventually I'm going to put them in one of my containers, and basically once it gets like November-ish, mid-November, I'm going to take the tomatoes when they're dried, and I'm going to put them, just lay them on top of the dirt, and then sprinkle a little dirt on top of it, a little bit, not much, just a little bit, so that way in the first part of spring they'll sprout. When the dirt warms up, put a little water to them, they'll start sprouting, and I'll have a big old clump of those things, and I'll have my big old massive vine clumpage of the tomatoes. And the reason why I know that'll happen is because Linda, a friend of mine that goes to market with me, she had some last year, and they just basically hit the ground and rotted in the ground, which I might do that too. Just let them hit their thing, just lay them on the dirt and just let them just decompose in the dirt the natural way. And then when next spring comes around, they'll just, there they are. Because she said she has like 300 plus of those tomato plants that grew up this year, that basically, of course, when she came to market selling tomatoes, she had gobs of those, and people bought them because they have really great flavor. And I figured, if nothing else, there's a woolly worm. Well, that's, if you go by the woolly worm, that woolly worm, he's pretty red. So if you go by the woolly worm, so to say, that means we're going to have a mild winter, which I won't mind. I will go down there and pick him up, but he's on the ladder to the pool. I mean, there's like a little bit of black on one end, a little bit of black on the other, and the rest of him is like a brownish red. And like I said, if you go by the woolly worm, that's a great sign. Because if the woolly worm's completely black, it means we're going to have a hardcore winter. But seeing him just kind of made my heart just kind of lift up a little bit, because that means we're going to have a mild winter. Now, not to say there's not going to be a bunch of other woolly worms that's going to be completely black. But as my grandmother would say, the old timers, like her great grandparents and so back, would say the first woolly worm that you see in the fall is an indication of what your winter is going to be like. And he's the first one I've seen in the fall, and he is nice and red. So to me, that's a great sign. Ugh. But I don't want to bore you with a bunch of stuff and a bunch of other things, but like I said, Sunday after market, I come home, I unload, I'm going to gather my bag, and I'm going to hit the woods, and I'm going to mark some sassafras trees if they're available, which I know there's going to be some. And if there's, you know, I'm looking for small ones. Like I want something that's, you know, maybe, well, I'd take something that's about a foot tall, foot to 2 foot tall, but I'm preferably looking for something that's about 3 foot tall-ish, maybe 3.5 to 4, because the roots aren't super down the ground. The root's big enough to where I can get some use out of it, and it won't go to waste. And, you know, I can make tea with it. I'm going to make jelly with it. You know, everybody's going to be happy. And then I'm also going to dig some golden seal, or, you know, yellow root, however you want to call it. Bring it home, put it in some of my containers around here, and, you know, let everything be. So, but with that being said and done, I'm getting kind of raspy from talking so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut up, and I'm going to turn this thing off, take it in the house, and download it sometime this afternoon. So sometime Thursday afternoon you're going to see my ass on there talking to you about whatever. But you will see me in, you know, like I said, Sunday afternoon, guaranteed I'm going over there. And then probably more than likely I'll go back Monday as well. And then on top of it, I'm gonna turn the camera some. Where all these weeds and trees are through here and all this brush, I'm not gonna say that there is anything that I'm looking for amongst all this, but there could be. I mean, there very well could be a couple sassafras trees in there. So I am gonna venture off my little side lot there, and well, it's not my side lot, but it's the one adjacent to my yard, and I'm just gonna see if there's anything in there worth digging out as well. Now, I do know there's some blackberry plants over there, some wild ones, and there's some over here in the side lot next to me over here. I might try to see about transplanting from there to over here, but I might just leave them over there to let them do their thing and everything else. And but the only bad thing about them over there is there's a lot of tree canopy, so there's a lot of shade on them, so they don't get the full sun like they should get. So that's why I thought about digging those up and bringing them over here. And well, if it works great. And you know, if not, then you know I'll have to rely on thornless blackberries, which I do love thornless, but I grew up picking from thorned blackberries. And you know, a lot of people cry about it. Go, I get stuck by briars. Man, my arms have got so many scars and marks on it from picking from thorn blackberries. I prefer thorn ones, but you know, because even with the thornless, I'm sitting there when I'm picking, I'm like moving my arms around, because I'm, you know, to me, I pick from thorned berries all the time. Even the thornless ones, I act like they're thorned. I'm doing this number when you just reach your hand in and just grab whatever you want, and there you are. But yeah, it is what it is. No big deal. No harm, no foul. But I'm gonna shut up and take my ass inside the house. I gotta feed my goats as you hear them. I gotta feed the chickens. Gotta check for some eggs, and there's a few things I just gotta do around here. So I'm gonna shut up and tend to the old homestead, the hobby farm as I refer to, and you know, I'm gonna see what I can get into. Do a little cleanup around the yard, cutting some vines out, cutting some weeds out, throw them to the goats, let them have a nice little snack besides what they have, and I'll see y'all soon, hopefully, as long as God's willing to let my feet hit the floor. So until then, I'll catch you again soon, and have a great day, have a great Friday coming up, and definitely have a great weekend. I'll catch y'all again later.